Welcome to a special edition of the Richmond Film Network Podcast featuring Casey Lenhart, composer for the short film Monday, a White Balloon Productions film directed by Richmond Film Network founder Lisa Giles. Made for the first ever Global City producer 48-hour film project.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Richmond Film Network Podcast. I'm Lisa Giles, your host, and with me today is Casey Lenhart. Casey is a composer, orchestrator, and musician in Richmond, Virginia. He graduated from the College of William and Mary with a degree in film and media studies and completed his graduate certificate program at Berklee College of Music. He has a passion for composing across multiple genres and building a community of collaborators. Films he has scored have been shown at several festivals, including Genre Blast, where he was nominated for Best Score, Overlook Horror Festival, The Future of Film is Female, Grimfest, our very own RFN Indie Fest, and Ampersand International Arts Festival. Casey, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start off by talking about how you got into composing and your inspirations and how you found yourself on this path.
Yeah, for most of my life, I've been pretty musical. Like, I started playing piano at 5 and then kind of just kept adding instruments onto it. And so was taking a class in high school called IB Film, and one of the projects we had to do is we had to make a short film for the semester. And so we got to the point where we finished the film and we were editing it, and so we were talking about music and who would do the music. And I kind of just was like, I'll do it. I know how to write music. I've done it for a bit, and so that's kind of how it got the ball rolling. I mean, I had always been really into movies, and I had always been really into music, so it kind of just felt it didn't feel awkward to start composing for film. And ever since then, I've just been trying to learn more and gain more knowledge and gain more experience in that field.
So was the goal to always score for film or to play in orchestras or?
Yeah, so the goal is obviously to be a film composer, but through kind of going on that journey, I've learned how those skills can be kind of used in other avenues of media, like commercials and sync music and podcasts and even video games. I've kind of from meeting different composers in the industry, kind of learning all the many different creative ways to be a composer in this field. Kind of the possibilities are kind of endless in that. But through all that, the top dream is to be a composer for film.
Well, full disclosure to everybody listening, Casey and I just had the good fortune of collaborating on a film that I directed this past weekend, well, I guess 2 weekends ago now. The film is called Monday. And I was familiar with Casey's work based on a film that he had previously, one in particular film that he previously scored called Killer Crush that he had done this past summer. Had seen that, and just instantly the music just really stood out to me. And I remember complimenting you about it when I saw you at Indie Fest. And so we had the good fortune of, the timing was right and we needed a composer, and there he was available. And so Casey, thank you for being part of this project. And we just finished it. We just had a cast and crew screening of it yesterday. So we got to see it with with the cast and crew. And for those who are listening, this was done for a 48-hour film project. So the film was made in 48 hours, start to finish, written, shot, edited, delivered in 48 hours. So one of the rules is you can't do anything creative prior to that 48-hour clock start. So going into this, you and I had no idea what kind of movie we're going to make. We have writers who are writing the story, who don't know what kind of story they're writing because they don't know their genre. Even we have actors on standby, we have locations on standby. And you've done scoring for 48s before. So tell me about your process going in when you know so little about what you're going to do.
Yeah, so this has been my fourth 48. So by this point, I've kind of developed a rhythm going in to prepare for anything. And so like I set up everything beforehand, like, my workstation, whether or not I'm going to need live instruments or use, electronic instruments. Set up kind of my workstation in my DAW to just kind of be ready from the jump. And so that when like I get the genre and I hear what the kind of the short is going to be about, I can already, I can just spend some time like, brainstorming what the style is going to be instead of worrying about like making sure everything's set up. So like I can just kind of strictly focus on the creative aspect instead of like the technical stuff.
So when you got the script, what was your reaction knowing we were going to do a comedic apocalyptic? How did your mind start working? What themes or emotions or what kind of ideas started spinning for you?
Well, I was pretty happy about the genre because, for the past year, all the projects, including the 48s that I've done, have always been kind of very horror tinged, and so it's kind of been staying in that particular lane all year. So like, part of me was kind of hoping like, oh, it'd be nice to get like something that's like not horror, and so getting like, comedy, apocalypse, and then getting the script, I kind of realized, oh, there's kind of, obviously it's like a very dire situation, but there's a lot of humor and a lot of kind of like, lightheartedness in a weird way about like the story. So I kind of was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I get to maybe kind of like delve back into my more orchestral work that I kind of hadn't been really doing for a film for about a year. And so it was a lot of fun to reacquaint myself with like the music libraries that I hadn't been using for about a year.
So just two of the songs that I remember right off, Five Precious Minutes, Last Wishes. So are you reading the actual script and then thinking, okay, this might be happening now, and then, you're having these ideas flow, or how
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah, so like, when it comes to obviously doing the 48s, you can't really bet on being able to score to screen, which is usually like how I've worked on projects that are not 48s. So like you kind of have to score to the script almost and kind of like almost kind of guess like I think music might work here. And I think it helped because when I was like reading it, it felt very much like these like montages of different people doing different
Hmm.
things. So I kind of thought, oh, then like it'd be cool to have like, music underneath it, kind of like going from one thing to the next.
Hmm.
And so with that track Five Precious Minutes, I kind of I kind of wrote that to kind of as like when I was reading the script as kind of the intro of like, we've got 5 minutes left, the apocalypse is upon us. So I wanted something a little more spooky for that. So I was like, oh, it's a nice little crescendo into kind of almost like the hilarity that ensues afterwards. And then like Last Wishes, I wrote that kind of both as like up for the montage of people doing what they want to do for the last 5 minutes, but also kind of maybe using it as like kind of the relief period when like the world has been saved. So that was another thing where I was kind of like, I want to write these things to the script, but I want to make them kind of almost interchangeable so that like the editor can have options of what they want to use for the film.
Now, we were talking about this yesterday when we got together with several other people who were there on the project. That was probably one of the most, I don't want to say satisfying, maybe satisfying, but it was one of the most fun parts of the project for me, was the edit and the composition happening at the same time and seeing those things come together, because you're seeing, you have all the little bits of all the shots that are just out there, and then they come together, and then the last thing usually is the music. And so when that edit was coming together, and I remember us going back and forth, and you were talking about the timing, and you were in real time giving us shorter clips or longer
Hmm.
clips to fit with the scenes. So that seems so complicated to me, not being a person who plays music. and you did it so quickly. How did you even figure that out?
Yeah, so I mean, for that, it was just a matter of like timing the scenes out. So like I got the cut that Alex sent me with the cues that hadn't been cut that hadn't been cut down yet. It was the full cues, and so I kind of noticed that like for one of the scenes, especially the scene where like Jasmine is speaking, and like I guess Jasmine's theme, which was one of the cues I wrote, is playing underneath, and for that one, it was the cue was too short, so like Alex had to loop it. And so I kind of was telling Alex that, hey, I can, extend it. I can create a new cut down of that where I can like make it longer. And while I'm doing that, I can like create cut downs for the other pieces if you want to use. And so what I basically did was I just went through the rough cut. I kind of timed the different cues for how long they would. I would go back to my DAW and I would like extend it to put like a marker at where it needs the cue needs to start and stop, and I would just start editing and kind of rearranging uh the cue that so that it could fit within that marker and not feel like a cut down, but just like that's how long the piece is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what you said you go back to your what? What word did
My
you say?
DAW, my digital audio workstation.
Okay. Okay. And what kind of were these were the instruments or what were you using?
I was using the music library East West. They have a whole orchestral library called the Hollywood Library, which is like Hollywood orchestra. So you get like brass, winds, percussion, and strings. The East West, they like get like an orchestra of real musicians. They put them on a sound stage, like a Hollywood sound stage, and they basically have them play all the different like notes and everything so that like you can sample with essentially real instruments. So yeah, that's kind of what I was using for the most part, and I was primarily using like the strings and the woodwinds and the different percussion libraries that I had to kind of try to make the music feel as real as possible, even if it wasn't real technically.
Hmm. That's fascinating. It's fascinating. So in this 48-hour time constraint, and obviously you're working the entire time as well, but on the editing day and those final hours, were you under pressure or did you feel like, oh, I got this? Or how was that level of stress for you on that editing day?
Well, I think this was the for the this project was the least stressful 48 for me. Like I think I've kind of like learned from previous 48s what my best workflow is. And so, like, when I was doing the 48 in the summer, like, I actually went on set and I didn't start writing music until like Sunday. And I learned that that was a bad idea because that was just like I was crunch timing towards the end and my DAW broke, unfortunately. But, I was able to get the music through. But I was like, I don't want to like create a situation for that again. So when I did Killer Crush, I was like, what I'm gonna do is once I get the project, once I hear from the director, or get the green light from the director, I'm just gonna start making as much music as I can in the time being. Send it, and then kind of like send them to the filmmaker and get their kind of feedback. And if they like it, then I can keep making like changes to it. And so that was kind of the mindset I had for this one, where I got the script, I got the genre, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna make these cues, I'm gonna send them to you, the director, get your feedback on it, and if I get the green light that this is like the style for the film, I'm just going to keep going throughout the day and just making as much music as I can, so that when Sunday comes, when it's the editing time, you know there's a lot of music to choose from. There's a lot of different options for the editor to like choose, put in, leave out. And all I need to worry about at that point is like cut downs and just making like tiny edits instead of like worrying about like making more music, because I don't need to make more music because I've already like made more than 10 minutes worth of music, and this movie is only like 7 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. When you first sent the ideas to me,
Hmm.
and I remember listening to those, I was like, oh, I can easily see this here. I could see this here. So it was like instantly you hit it on the head for me. So when you saw the first cut, was it did you agree? Did you feel like, oh, this definitely works, or did you change anything? Because there were moments when you were sending things that I couldn't listen to everything that you were
Hmm.
sending because I was doing other things. But did you feel like you were right on, or did you change anything in a significant way?
Um, I think the only thing I really changed was for Jasmine's theme. I kind of realized, like, since this was a huge dialogue scene, because the full cue I made for that cue, there's like crescendos. It's a lot more dynamic in, like, loudness and quietness. And for this scene where it's just her and her lab partner in a room, just small room together. I kind of felt like, okay, so I need to expand on the quieter parts for this particular scene and make it work for that. But everything else, I was watching it and I kind of thought, yeah, I can't really imagine any other kind of style of music underneath
Yeah.
this. Like, I think it works. And so that was kind of a lucky break for me, because I was like, oh, thank goodness, it works.
Yeah, and I will just note that the Alex that we're referring to is Alex DeBoard. Was the editor for this project, who did an incredible job, incredible. And then we also worked on the music for the credits, and Alina McMahon was doing the design of the credits. And one of the rules for the competition is that you can't have more than a minute of credits. So there was a longer version of music, and then we had to cut that down to a minute version when our film was beyond the time that it had to be. So,
Yeah.
we were thinking, okay, we've got an 8-minute film. We can't have more than 7 minutes. So we couldn't have more than, the 1 minute of credit. And again, you got that back pretty quickly, shaving that from 140 to 1 minute. So was that complicated, or was that a simple thing? Because it seemed like you did it pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of had already made like a mini cut down of it, like
Oh,
just
okay.
just on like standby. It's like I was talking to Alina over the night over email, and she was asking how long should the credits be, and I had said, like, past projects I've done, they've usually been about a minute, and
Hmm.
so she was like, oh, okay. And so what I did was I sent both, I think, a minute 30, minute 40 cut down, and then I sent a minute cut down, just in case like the minute 41 doesn't go through. So like you can just switch it up and do that very quickly.
So in a 48, obviously everything is accelerated, but in a traditional environment for you, when you have time to sit with the material and think about it and rework it and everything, how does your workflow change, your philosophy between how you approach what you're doing? How is that different? Other
Well,
than
like,
time, obviously.
yeah, well, I think normally, like, I try to get into the project during pre-production, because I think that's like the best time to speak with the filmmaker and just kind of brainstorm ideas of what they want. And sometimes the filmmaker might already have the soundtrack in mind. And so what they'll do is send me like soundtracks upon soundtracks of inspiration and be like, this is what I want. And so that kind of gives me a lot of time to do a lot of homework for them, of just like listening to these soundtracks, trying to kind of immerse myself into like what the sonic soundscapes are going to be for this. And so that once like post production starts and like it's now like my turn to like start making the music, like I can just like hit the ground running and not like need to like ask too many questions. Like I've already been able to kind of grasp what the instrumental palette is going to be, and so that when the time comes, like it shouldn't like take that long, or like it shouldn't be chaotic or messy when interacting between the editors and the filmmakers, because by that point we're all on the same page together of what the music should be.
Did you have any surprises during the process with Monday?
Well, this was kind of a rarity in that I was kind of almost left to my own devices a bit, but sometimes the filmmakers, in a short moment, they'll send me a Spotify playlist of like, this is like the mood or something along those lines. But sometimes the filmmaker will come to me and just be like, just do something cool. Like, I trust you. I trust you. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so like the challenge for me is just to like trust myself. I can read from the script what kind of things you're grabbing from, like what you're
Hmm.
is inspiring you for this. And so for this one, I kind of just thought, okay, there's a huge emphasis on time. I think the music should reflect that. It should be very rhythmic, almost like it's like a train, and it should be thrilling but not intense because it's like still a comedy, so I want it to be a little lighthearted but still kind of like it's still keeping you moving. So I guess that was the biggest challenge, where I was like, I don't want it to be too funny but I don't want it to be too intense, so I had to kind of like try to find a middle ground between the two of like, okay, it's both this and that, and kind of reflecting the two sides of the film, the apocalyptic side and the comedy side.
Hmm. My approach with working with you, and this is something that I had discussed with our producer Will Sedaros, is I I'd heard your work. I had seen it before, and so in having that exposure to what you can do, I said, he's the professional with the music. He knows what he's doing. And then when you sent me the samples, I was like, this is perfect. This is, exactly, it fits. So I was probably a little more hands off than I normally am in other situations.
Hmm.
But like I said, you are the professional. You're the one, who does this, and just hearing how you described your approach to it, I couldn't have said it better. The need for the urgency because of the 5 minutes until the world is gone, and things like that. So I think you handled it amazingly. Now that wasn't the case with the trailer music, which you did not do. But the trailer music, the sample that came to me was totally different from what I expect. I was like, this is definitely not the tone. What came through was like a light jazzy
Oh,
feel.
uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, this is definitely not
Hmm.
cohesive to what we've already done. So thank you for hitting it right on the head. Um, was there anything, especially after seeing the film yesterday, is there anything that you would change after you've seen the completed project on a big screen in a theater?
I know you mentioned trying to get Alex back to make, like, I guess, like a cleaner cut for festivals and stuff.
Hmm.
I would definitely like to go back and maybe make some more cut downs to kind of actually try to get to score to screen for some of the footage. Um, I think like it could like sync better in some directions. I also like after we finished, like I last week I went back to some of the cues and I kind of like made some changes and additions and additions and kind of rearrangements, like because I was like listening to them and I was like, well, I mean, I would love to release this music as like a soundtrack on some of my platforms. I was like listening to it and I was kind of like, some of it sounds a little too repetitive, it sounds a little too like it was made in 2 days. And so I wanted to maybe spruce it up a bit in some of the departments. And also I think I would like to maybe remix and maybe master some of the tracks, because the cues I did send weren't mastered yet. But I mean, still sounded pretty good in the theater. But I definitely think I'd like to like go back and perfect it a bit more. I am a very self-critical person of my own work. I feel like I could go on and on because I'm very self-critical.
Understandable. I think a lot of artists would refine and refine and refine, but
Mhm.
at some point you got to let it go. And that's the
Yeah,
one good thing about the 48 is that you got to let it go.
you gotta let it
or,
go. Yeah.
or yeah. So Casey, what else are you working on musically? What projects are on the horizon for you?
I'm actually doing scoring for a short from a William Mary alum friend of mine who's out in LA. His like debut short, I think it's called Trust, and it's like kind of like a dark comedy thriller film, and so I'm tasked to do the music for that. So yeah, I mean it's a lot of like auditioning for scores for filmmakers, trying to keep in the loop with other filmmakers. But like as of right now, I feel like I got a bit on my plate, which I can't really say the same for me this past year. This past year has been a bit dry in that department. So it's kind of wild that towards the end of this year, like just everything's popping up and up and up, and different filmmakers' plans for filming for next year. And I'm trying to get on the bandwagon for that.
Yeah, well, that's how it happens. You do one thing, and then somebody hears about it, and they love it, and then that leads to the next thing, and leads to the next thing, and to the next thing. So that's very exciting. Well, Casey, you're in the Richmond Film Network Collective, so hopefully you will keep us all abreast of what's going on, so we can support you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Tell our viewers how they can keep up with you.
Yes, so I will get one eventually, but right now I do not have an Instagram, so I apologize for that. But you can keep updated with me on my website. Whenever I have a soundtrack release, I'm always updating the audio page, showing my best work. I also active on LinkedIn. I'm always like posting gig updates on that. Going back to the website, like if any filmmakers need any music for their projects, you can reach me through the website, the message portal, and I'll be in touch with that.
And that URL is?
Yes, it is Casey CASEYLENH.art. So it's CaseyLenH.art. Just play on my name.
Awesome. Casey, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching this special edition of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Be sure to vote for Monday to win audience choice in the Global City Producer 48-hour film project. Then join us in person at the awards watch party on January 10th at 12 p.m. at the Hub. Everyone's invited.